All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast. If you've been enjoying our content, please make sure to like and subscribe. We appreciate your support, but we're through another week here of the college basketball season. We had some incredible performances by Debanza, Flemings, a couple 40-point games there. Nebraska made it to 20-0. That's big for the program. We love that. But Marcus, I'm going to let you dive into the week as a whole and just highlight some games you enjoyed and maybe the team of the week, the team to look out for.
Yeah. I think you're going to speak to that first, the comment you made about some of the freshmen. 40-point games from Kingston Flemings, AJ Debanza, Keaton Wagler at Illinois, and a very impressive road victory at Purdue, right? He had 47, was it? I forget, 46 with 9 threes and an 88-82 win over Purdue. Purdue had a very tough week. Started their week with a loss on the West Coast to UCLA, and then followed that up with a loss at home to Illinois, by 6 in a game they were favored by, I believe, 6 or 7 points in that game. So rough week for Purdue. No reason really to hit the panic button, but like you said, Nate, it was another awesome week. Some teams with some big wins. Texas Tech had a massive win over Houston. UNC had a big week. I'll actually probably say they were the team of the week. I was between them and Illinois. But I think the magnitude of kind of where they were at a week ago, with basically their fan base they're already planning for their next head coach. Was it going to be Nate Oates? Was it going to be Tommy Lloyd? Who's it going to be? I know there's some Brad Stevens, hopefuls out there at UNC, but this was a big week for them. Of course, they did what they needed to do against the Marcus Burtonless Notre Dame team, but then the way they came back in this game against Virginia on the road. Virginia, like we talked about last week, has been playing as well as anybody. Virginia led pretty big in this game. They were up 9 at halftime, and then UNC just sort of dismantled them in the second half, scored 51 points, shot at 50% for the game. Caleb Wilson was really efficient, as we had kind of talked about last week. His athleticism, his ability to just sort of move laterally, and Virginia not really having someone to hold him back on the defensive end was obviously going to be a huge key, and it showed. 20 points for him. And then UNC got some very much needed bench production from, like, Jaren Stevenson had a nice game with 17, and Luka Bogovac shot it well and had 14 himself. So this was a very much needed victory for North Carolina. And, so hats off to them. I know we were a bit down on them last week when we did this video. They responded very well, putting them in a nice position here. If they can win the next few heading into the first rendition of Duke Carolina, the first one at Chapel Hill, I believe that's next Saturday, February 7th. So, a nice week for them.
Yeah, North Carolina, I'm sure the fans are very happy to get them kind of back on track. A team I wanted to quickly shout out, Cody, I think you probably are going to shout this team out as well. But Texas Tech, is that probably a team you were going to mention? I mean, they had a nice win against Houston, of course, and then they beat BYU. That was not quite last week, but about a week ago on Saturday. So they've been playing some high quality ball. But I'll let you take it away. Who's your team of the week?
Yeah, and they beat Baylor earlier in the week. I don't know if that's even a good win anymore, but I would say it's between Texas Tech and Illinois. I think both of those teams really emerged as like, hey, like this team can go ahead and make it to a Final Four, and I wouldn't be shocked at all. And they could even win a title at the end of when it's all said and done. There's just so many teams in the country that I view as potential national champions. Like you could go, I don't know, 14 or 15 deep, and I'd be like, I'm not all that surprised that this team's in a national title game. I mean, there's a few teams in there that I don't think have enough offense to get the job done, but they're just the depth of the talent at the top is pretty elite. Like, I don't view Arizona and Michigan as like far and away like the best teams in the country, like some people do. Like, especially like looking at odds boards, like both of those teams are like plus 450 to win the national title, and then Duke was like 1,300 last week. It just didn't make a ton of sense. I think they can compete with them each and every night, and I think those teams would probably split head to head, 5-5, maybe 6-4 in a 10. If you played that game 10 times, but yeah, I would say. I mean, Texas Tech was extremely impressive. Like, if you can score 90 on, perennially a top 3 defense in the country I mean, they just kept doing it, like, kind of through the same actions. They were always going to, like, Houston's always going to blitz the pick and roll handler. Just, they found their outlet in JT Toppin. He was able to make a decision when it came to, like, if they sent 2 at him, he was able to make the right pass to a shooter, whether that be Atwell or Petty. But if they played him single coverage, like, he just got to his left hook and got the job done there. So, I mean, an extremely impressive performance. And Texas Tech's getting healthy as well. They got Josiah Mosley back. Didn't play, like, a ton, but his rebounding is going to be very impactful. Luke Bamgoy is on his way back. So I think the defense has another level to it. And I wouldn't say their defense really showed up against Houston. Like, Fleming's obviously dropped 42 on them. So they could have been better on that side of the floor. But ultimately, their offense is elite. And kind of the same thing with Illinois. And, it was the true Keaton Wagler coming out party. I mean, Purdue had no answers. Purdue was trying to switch every single action in the first half, and when you have 0 switchable defenders on your roster, I don't really know if that's the best idea. They eventually just kind of high-hedged the ball out of his hands and weren't able to rotate the shooters in time. Like, they just, because Illinois, they have 5 players on the floor at all times that could knock down the 3. So when Purdue's in scramble mode, it's not pretty for them, especially when playing a high-level shooting offense like that. So those 2 teams are really impressive. Besides that, like UNC, obviously they got it figured out. I think people panicked a little bit too much with them. The defense didn't necessarily look phenomenal, but Jaron Stevenson kind of pulling one out of nowhere. Honestly, I whenever I watch him, I never really see him make threes. He happens to make them when I'm not watching, but he ended up making what? How many did he make? 3? I think 3 off like pick and pop. Like, it was something I haven't seen before. So I'll credit him for that. St. John's has been quietly awesome. I know they're playing in the Big East and not playing like a daunting schedule, but they've been very good, arguably better than UConn so far during Big East play. And I'm really looking forward to that matchup. I believe they play like a week from now, maybe a little bit more than that. So I'm very excited for that game. And I think St. John's can easily win that one. And then, yeah, I had Baylor jotted down as like, this team is an absolute mess. So especially on the defensive end, like, their offense doesn't even really look that great either. Against TCU was kind of supposed to be the get right game, but they kind of got lit up by them as well. The Texas Tech game was very odd. Like, Tech made 14 threes in the first half, and I think 12 of them came from 2 players. Like, it was pretty insane. They had 0 answers. Like, it's somewhat of a personnel issue, but it's somewhat of a scheme issue as well. And they completely changed their scheme, like Ron Sanchez as their defensive coordinator this season, and it just hasn't gone all that well. They've got a little more passive defensively and just kind of get ripped apart on the glass and on the interior in general. So hasn't been pretty there for Baylor. One like under the radar team that I would like to shout out is the DePaul Blue Demons. They've played, sneaky good basketball so far. They're sitting at 4 and 5 in the Big East. And like, that's really good for a team that has been like kind of in the dumpster for a while. I know they were, they would have had that 3-28 season with the whole betting scandal that happened to them, the game fixing stuff. So they probably would have played a little bit better, but ultimately I think they've won 4 straight conference home games. It was like the first time in, I think it was like 15 years or something like that. The first time they had won 3 straight conference home games. So their defense has been really good. Chris Holtman, people kind of threw right after, his struggles at the end of his Ohio State tenure, but this seems to be a really good spot for him. And he has these guys playing pretty well. And, I kind of like the roster coming into the season. Some of these guys are coming to fruition. I've always kind of been a Layden Blocker guy on the defensive end. And Jay Benson's playing really well as like a small ball 5. And CJ Gunn carrying a lot of the scoring load has been rather efficient for his workload. So I credit the Paul Blue Demons for, kind of turning it around in year 2 of the Holtman era.
Yeah, I think that's the first shout for DePaul this season, at least, on the pod.
Yeah, they needed one at some point.
Yeah, shout out to DePaul.
Certainly the first positive shout.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, Marcus. That's 100% correct. But we had something kind of break the news here in the previous week with Charles. I might be saying this wrong. Bediako.
That's right.
Is that correct? Wow. Okay. But he hasn't played college basketball in 3 years, I believe, and he's trying to make a comeback. He's sick of the G League. He wants to come back to Bama. What are our thoughts on that, Marcus? I'll start with you.
I mean, it's insane. We've talked about it enough, like off air. This is a guy that played. I want to make sure I get these numbers correct. But like, if you Google him, the first picture that shows up is him in a San Antonio Spurs jersey. He's played in 46 G League games in his career, started in 35 of them. In 24-25, averaged 10 points and 9 rebounds in the G League across 34 games that he started. And now he just played 25 minutes the other night against Tennessee. Just hearing myself say that sounds made up, right? I mean, he came back, he played 25 minutes, had 13 points, 3 rebounds, and he hasn't played college basketball since 22-23, upon which he went to the NBA draft and, was with the Austin Spurs for a year. Believe he had a 2-way contract, and now he's back in college basketball for his final year of eligibility, right? It's gotten out of control, and you've heard a lot of coaches, I think, talk about it this week in particular. But, over the course of the season, Dan Hurley being one of them, Tom Izzo being another, John Calipari has lit into, what's been going on. He's gone on rants in the media. It's really shifting the landscape of college basketball if this is what they're truly going to allow. My opinion is eventually they're going to have to, somebody, like, whether it's the courts or something, like, they're gonna have to intervene and put in some sort of rules, because right now they're operating under no rules, which is funny, right? Because for the longest time the NCAA went with the strictest rules, and now we're to this point of the complete polar opposite. There are no rules. Anybody can play. I mean, before long, you're going to have like Carmelo back with 3 years of eligibility at Syracuse, right? It's gotten out of control, really. And, like Bediako, I think, is even like a more extreme example of like the James Najee situation. But even still, like, I don't agree with that. He played G League. He was drafted 31st overall in the NBA draft. So what's going to happen now? He's back in college with 4 years of eligibility. And then what? Can he re-enter the NBA draft? Like, it makes absolutely no sense to me. But that's enough ranting from me. Cody, what do you think here?
I'm right there with you, Marcus. I completely agree. But Cody, let's hear it.
Yeah, I think Najee will have to go back to who has his rights. Who is it? The Knicks. I think the Knicks have his rights. So I think once he wants to go back to the pros, he can just go back to the Knicks. But it's such a weird dynamic for me.
Well, what happens? What if, like, when the college basketball season ends, he's like, maybe I can go play in the G League playoffs for the Knicks. Then can he come back to college? Like, where is the line being drawn?
That is interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of the issue.
Point.
It's like, I mean, the NCAA, like, they are setting guidelines, but they're just getting taken to court and they're losing. Like, really, no matter what happens, like, they're not winning any of these cases. So, like, I would assume Bediako is just going to have, free reign to play the rest of the season. That was supposed to be the guideline. You sign a 2-way contract, like, you can't play, like, you can't come back. And I think their argument is, it's like, well, these Euro guys play 3 years overseas and then they can come over and play. Like, what's the difference between me, like, playing in the G League and coming back? Like, I guess, like, the one set rule, it seems like, is like, if you played an NBA game, you have no chance. Like, you cannot come back and play. I'm surprised, like, a guy like, I think it was Trenton Flowers, who was like, he had played 8 games this season was allegedly trying to come back. That all that stuff kind of got shot down. But yeah, it's very weird to me that a guy that's already in the pros would want to come back and play in college. I understand like the money stuff is on the line, and like he's probably getting paid a little bit more than he would be in the G League right now. I couldn't imagine like how much Bediako is going to make to play 15 games. Like it doesn't really make a ton of sense to me, but like isn't the ultimate goal to play in the pros at the end of the day? The ultimate goal is to play in the NBA. And you going from the G League and reverting back to college isn't really a good look for you. I mean, I think we kind of knew that Bediako was going to have success back in college. Like we saw a 2-year sample size of him like kind of being the rim anchor for the number 3 defense in the country in Alabama 3 years ago. And he made a major impact the other night. Like his shot blocking presence, his overall just as a rim deterrent, like it was extremely impressive. But I just don't completely understand why you would just want to come back and play in college when the NBA is like, you are literally one step away. You're literally knocking on the door, and you literally you were one injury away from getting NBA minutes when you had the 2-way deal. Just make the most of your NBA opportunity, and like great things are going to happen. Like once you make your debut in the NBA, like you are pretty well set for life if you're able to manage your money. Like it just doesn't really make any sense to me why the players would want to do it outside of just making a quick buck.
Yeah, I feel like Bediako must have like the best lawyers in the world or something to let him continue on playing in college basketball. But
he's going to get another 10 days too. Like he's got like another like temporary restraining order got like extended for 10 more days by the Alabama judge that allegedly is a more than 6-figure donor to Alabama athletics. So it's there's a lot of weird stuff going on here. And, I just hope in the off season, like people can we can get to the bottom of this and actually have set guidelines. Like, if the government is going to have to step in and probably do something about this, I don't know like what they can do, like, legally, but it's just all crazy.
Who's the guy? There was another rumor. I think it was another Knicks player that.
Think what's his last name?
Pate.
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah, but he like would get eligibility.
Yeah.
So he's in the same boat as Bediako.
No, he's. It says, he's going to have Kentucky interest. Like,
the problem is like, didn't the second semester already start?
Yeah.
So I don't understand. Like, you got to have your classes settled like a week ago.
How did he? I don't really understand.
I mean, I just think
I'm sure
you can get eligibility if you need it. I guess. Like, I mean,
Bediako.
It's very weird to me.
Do we think Bediako is enrolled in 12 credits?
Allegedly.
I mean, there's no way. He's probably doing history of rock and roll online or something. There's no way he's enrolled with 12 credits to me. Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. I didn't think we'd see this, but I think just because there's no strict guidelines against this, that's the problem. I mean, they just allowed too much power in the players' hands, and this is what came from it.
We've gone from taking Reggie Bush's Heisman away to now you can do whatever you want. Do whatever you want.
It's crazy. Like you couldn't receive any benefits from coaches. Like a coach couldn't even pay for my meal. Like if we went out to dinner, I think that's the only thing that they were able to do is like on an official visit, like they were allowed to like maybe pay for our meals. That was like 11 years ago though. So it's just so much different. Like, literally couldn't do anything. And now it's kind of just free reign. Like however much money you have, like you have an unlimited budget. Like you could just give out whatever you want as much as the donors are willing to give, I guess.
And what was the Shabazz Napier rule that came in? Like they have to give you a certain amount of meals, right, on a road trip now. And now we're here. And that wasn't that long ago, with the Napier rule. So it's pretty crazy.
That is true. I've kind of forgot about that.
Yeah, it just happened all so fast, and now they're making millions of bucks. These 18, 19-year-old kids. It is kind of crazy.
Yeah,
I'm curious to.
I was going to say Johnny Manziel got suspended for what was it, half a game for signing some autographs. Like,
yeah.
We've come a long way from there.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to see how much further it ends up going before it starts kind of backtracking and we kind of go back to. I mean, we're not ever going to go back to like no NIL or anything like that. But I'd be curious to see when it's like, yeah, okay, you're capped. You can only make a certain amount of money, whether that's like you're capped at $1 million and you can only spend a certain amount on player, like a roster. Like you can only spend $10 million on a roster as opposed to Kentucky spending $22 million and obviously not doing much with it. But, overall, like if you cap it at like 10 million, I guess, that helps like give the mid majors a chance as well. But obviously, like nobody cares about the mid majors anymore. Like it's just pretty insane.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing they could do too is put a salary cap in place. That way, the mid majors are exciting again. I mean, we all love mid major basketball here, So, anything else to add on this situation?
I think about the time they let like Luka Doncic go play college basketball because he never got to play, that might be where the line gets drawn.
Or like LeBron goes to Arizona next year or something to play with Bryce.
Up with his son. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully they do something before that could happen, but we'll see. Let's look at the week ahead a bit here. We have some really great games, honestly, this coming week. I mean, Nebraska and Michigan. There's a couple good games tonight. We're recording this on Monday night. I mean, Duke, Louisville. It's just an array of good games. But Marcus, what do you think of these games? What do you have circled on your calendar as a must-watch?
Yeah, I think tonight's game between BYU and Arizona is much must-watch TV. That's going to be one that I think a lot of fans across the country have had circled as maybe a spot where Arizona finally falls. We'll see. I think it's a spot where they certainly could. Not an easy place to go play. But that's what I'm really looking forward to watching when we finish up here. Of course, you mentioned Nebraska and Michigan. That one coming tomorrow. That'll be a very interesting game, I think. There's some big games across the rest of the week. The midweek has a little bit less this week than usual. I know like Auburn and Texas is on Wednesday. That game should be fairly interesting. Tennessee plays Georgia. That'll be a solid game. That game was originally Tuesday, got pushed to Wednesday. And then Saturday, we always get some good games on Saturday. BYU traveling to Allen Fieldhouse, I think is one. Assuming Darren Peterson plays in that game, that should be a really fun game between Peterson and DeBansa. I think you got the first rendition. I won't steal too much thunder here, Cody. I know you'll probably want to speak to it a little bit, but the first rendition of St. Mary's Gonzaga, late night, Saturday night, 10:30. So I know that you've got that one circled. You probably had it circled for weeks. And then Sunday, we actually have two fantastic games, between Bama at Florida and then Illinois at Nebraska. I don't really think anyone's tuned in to watch Shedeur Sanders at the Pro Bowl, but that's why we've got some good basketball on Sunday. So lucky us, 1 and 4 o'clock with those two games.
Yeah, Michigan and Nebraska both have quite a tough schedule. I mean, this next week they play each other, and then Michigan plays Michigan State, Nebraska playing Illinois. But Cody, what are your thoughts on this upcoming week? What do you have circled? Of course, the Gonzaga game, but what else?
Yeah, I mean, I've had that game circled since July. I mean, you can make that up salivating waiting for this game to happen. It's only a few days.
Nothing like West Coast hoops.
But yeah, Nebraska. Yeah, I mean, I probably won't sleep that night. I'll be so amped up after the game. But Nebraska, I mean, yeah, they have a huge week, and then they have to play Purdue next week too. Like, it's going to be a real test for them if they get through this undefeated. I mean, we could just give them the national title now. Like, they'll never lose again. Be the next UCLA dynasty if they get through that. So, but yeah, huge week for them. Like, I think they can beat Michigan. I definitely I think they set up very well. Obviously, we'll talk about that in a game preview, but yeah, Kentucky, Arkansas is always a fun one. I forget if that one was mentioned. Coach Cal obviously playing his old squad there. I think that they beat Kentucky at Kentucky last year, right? I believe like his
Yeah.
his return to Rupp. UConn Creighton is sneaky, exciting. You know, UConn kind of always struggles to play in Omaha. I forget, I think they won last year, but it was very tight. And they just always seem to, just have troubles overall, really on both ends of the floor when they go there. Also excited for, San Diego State, Utah State, probably the top two teams in the Mountain West. I like to think New Mexico is in there within the top three, but that's going to be a super fun game. Obviously, St. Mary's Gonzaga, I had jotted down. Bama, Florida on Sunday is going to be very fun as well, especially after the comments that Todd Golden made about the Bediako stuff. And he said that it doesn't matter who they have, we'll just beat them anyway. That was the direct quote. And I think they can. They've always matched up well. It's been just a very rough matchup for Bama because they can kind of just get smoked on the glass. Florida can cut off the catch and shoot threes Bama's trying to create. So I think Florida has a really good chance to win that game. But besides that, I don't have much written down. I had BYU, Kansas jotted down. That should be a super fun up and down game. But yeah, ultimately, I think everything got covered.
Yeah, full slate of hoops looking ahead to this week. Anything else to add before we wrap things up here?
No.
All right. As always, Marcus, do you have something real quick?
No. It's going to be another good week.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Mainly Hoops podcast.